A lot of people think that your credit score is a black box. In reality, it's almost the opposite. Today we'll run through all the key factors, how to increase your score quickly, and how you might see improvements in as little as a month or two. Big favor before we dive in is to hit the like button to help with the algorithm. If you know someone that might benefit, then share this with them. Okay, as a starting point, do you even need a credit score? Definitely not, but it can make things harder and more expensive. Whether that's access to loan products like mortgages, or if you're early in your career, it could affect your ability to rent apartments. Okay, but what's the point of the score? Why do people care? The easiest way to think of it is that it's a measure of your ability and willingness to pay back loans on time. For things like credit cards and cars, it's pretty straightforward. For other things like rent, it's general financial responsibility. All things being equal, if possible and compatible with who you are, ideally you want a good credit score. With that said, let's look at the key factors. Note that this isn't some secret. The credit bureaus like Experian and TransUnion actively tell you what they're looking for and why it matters. Both the factors and also the impacts. There are differences and deviations based off the exact model, but the general idea is the same. There's also FICO and Vantage, which are different, but again, for our purpose, it's very similar, if not exactly the same. For Vantage, you're aiming for prime or super prime, and for FICO, for good, very good, or exceptional. For the purpose of this video, we're going to focus on FICO because it's more widely used for lenders. Also note that FICO scores in the US go from 300 to 850, but in the past there were models that went all the way up to 900. As of filming though in the US, those are generally not used. Also, in case you're curious, about 1.3% of Americans have an 850 score, and average is around 714. FICO looks at 5 key things. The biggest two are going to be payment history at 35 and total debt at 30%. 3 smaller ones are going to be length of credit history at 15%, credit mix at 10%, and new credit at 10%. Payment history is the biggest one at 35%, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Do you pay off your loans or other credit vehicles on time? This includes things like credit cards, also retail accounts, installment loans, finance accounts, and mortgages. The formula is going to be total on-time payments divided by total number of payments. So for example, if you have one card for 1 year and you missed one payment, then you're at 11 divided by 12. Ideally for this one, you want 100% and to not miss any payments. There are a few ways to protect this for yourself in the short term. Number 1 is setting up auto payments, and number 2 is setting it as a to-do list on your calendar. But yeah, this is one of the ones that punishes you for making a mistake, so if you're responsible and on top of things, then it should be relatively fine. If life happens and you're in a bind, pay at least a minimum. It's not ideal, but it's still something, and it protects your score. If you want to make sure that you don't miss payments and you want to optimize things like utilization, we do have a tool for this, and I'll link it down below and share other tools as well. Second factor is total debt, also known as utilization, which is 30%. This one's pretty interesting because it's a big factor, but you also have a lot of control. The formula is total amount owed divided by total credit available. For example, if you have one card with a $1,000 limit and use $300 of which, it's going to be 300 divided by 1,000 for 30% utilization. If you read online, 30% is the magical number, but I would say for our purpose, if you really want to optimize it, 9 or 8% is even better. For example, based off Experian data, you can kind of see a big range. Average credit utilization in the good category is about 35%, very good is about 14%, and exceptional is 6.5%. As you can tell, the higher your utilization, the worse your score. At the same time, you do want something to report, but it doesn't have to be a ton. It can be $1 or 1%. Okay, great, you want a low utilization, but how is that possible if I'm using my card? There's pretty much 2 ways to optimize this. Number 1 is to use cash, like you previously did, and to only have a small charge on your card. So use cash for everything like before and buy a coffee or meal with your card. That might make sense if you're new to credit, but not ideal for everyone else. Number 2 is to know when to calculate utilization and optimize around it. For most credit card issuers, the utilization number, the snapshot they take, is based off your statement closing date. This is picture day and the day you want low utilization. It also does depend on bank, but picture time is generally about 5 p.m. Eastern time on that date. The thing though is that if you make a payment before that date, then you're going to have lower utilization. This is something I've talked about in the past and what I still do. It also helps so you can do a lot of this while watching Netflix or YouTube. Same way that I'll randomly look for award availability for flights and other stuff. One thing to be careful with is going to be credit unions and also regional banks, which might have different schedules. For example, of the big ones, I know that US Bank reports balances based off the last business day of the month rather than statement close date. Okay, so we have Sebby on set reporting and he's going to simplify all of this. Okay, so you log into your account and you find out when picture day is. Let's say it's on the 14th. The problem though is that you're using your card as you normally are and you're at 90% utilization. So 7th onwards, you're using the card. That's not good. I would say that around the 12th or 11th, you want to pay this down, whatever you need to get it down to 1 or 8% utilization. So once the card gets the picture day instead of 90%, you are at 8%. Once you take the picture, it's 8%, which is excellent, and next month or two, you're going to have an amazing credit score. This is the one thing that screws people over, especially people that don't have a lot of cards, who don't have a lot of credit. If you have a lot of cards of a lot of different close dates, then that can be pretty annoying, but the other Sebby will walk you through all this. Okay, thanks for the pass off. Also out of curiosity, is that last year's calendar? Did you buy it on sale? Well, yes, Sebby, I did buy it on sale. Why don't you shut the looks like we had a connection issue. Let's get back into it. Most of the time, there's a certain number of days between those two dates, and you can just do the math there. Yeah, you can do this change by either calling them or doing it online, and I'd recommend just doing it online. There are a lot of date options, but for a lot of issuers, it's either going to cut off on the 28th or 24th range. All you need to do is change all of your cards or most of your cards to certain dates, and it simplifies everything. If you are trying to do this with other issuer cards as well, and you want them all to be on the same date, then you'd want to do some math. Once a statement closes, you generally have about 20 to 25 days before the payment due date. Yeah, generally speaking, I think having it on 2 or 3 different dates or ranges makes it a lot easier. Same way you might vacuum or do laundry on Sundays. Next up, we have length of history, also known as average age of accounts. In the short term, all you can really do is to not add new accounts, which would bring down the average. In the long term though, there are reasons to add new accounts to have a better basis and also just more optionality. Also helps to strengthen your credit profile and access to other things. The closest parallel I can think of is working out, where you technically are damaging your body, but it repairs itself and it's rebuilding and rebuilding stronger. Also, closing accounts is generally fine if you have enough other cards. Closed accounts that are in good standing will generally stay on your credit report for up to 10 years. They do fall off afterwards, but that's probably fine. You're going to have other cards. Main thing to be careful with is that it's not your only card or credit product. Otherwise, your score is going to tank because it's not going to have anything reporting, and that's not good. Credit mix is another interesting one. It pretty much shows your ability to handle multiple debt products and be responsible. For example, car loans and mortgages or credit cards. So even though technically the more you have, the better, I wouldn't optimize your life around this. If it happens, then great, but I wouldn't go out of my way to get a mortgage or card note if you don't need a car and if you don't want a mortgage. The reason I like credit cards as a tool to increase your score is the fact that there technically is no interest component. If you use it responsibly, then you're fine. So for example, if you go out and buy coffee every month or use it as normal, and then you pay it off in full, then it reports, and that's a great score, no interest, no other cost. I'm not against getting a mortgage or a car loan, but I wouldn't get it for the purpose of increasing your score. Yeah, if you're doing everything else right, you're going to end up in super prime or very good or exceptional anyways, and I wouldn't overly focus on credit mix. The last one's new credit, also known as inquiries, and represents 10%. All you can really do in the short term is to not apply for other cards or other products, and that's pretty much it. Long term, of course, it makes sense because it is helping your score. You are building that base. Also, a reminder that inquiries fall off after 2 years, and they generally stop affecting your credit score after 1 year. If you're looking to boost your score in the short term in order to have better credit and probably access to stuff, then don't apply for anything in the meantime. Long term though, don't stress about it, that's part of the process. Main takeaway, even though there's 5 factors in the short term, I would argue that only one of them matter, and it's going to be utilization, which you have a lot of control over. Pay down your cards before picture day and you're good to go. You're probably going to have a significantly higher score. In the long term, you can optimize this by adding cards strategically. On that note, if you are someone that wants to learn about cards and you want to support the channel, we do have links on the website, asksebby.com, and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive, that the cards make sense for you and your situation, but otherwise, using those links is a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. Again, card tracker tool to increase your credit score down below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a champagne bottle emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions: what's your credit score, how many cards do you have, and what are your plans or goals with that score? Big favor, thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.